discuss about the spinal cord. Okay, but a small portion of the eyeball is left. Okay, first I will complete that and then I will go to the spinal cord. Okay, and I am having the slides also today. I will show you the slides of spinal cord. Okay, so the two structures which are left, that is the lens. Okay, crystalline lens and any guess? Eyelids. Crystalline lens and eyelids, microscopic structure. Okay, so if you see the, I hope you can see the diagram of the crystalline lens over here. Okay, so crystalline lens of the eye is transparent, biconvex shaped and avascular structure. I hope you can see the shape. It is biconvex, transparent and avascular structure. Where it is situated? It is situated in between the anterior and posterior compartment of the eyeball. Okay, that means in front of the lens will be aqueous humor, posterior to the lens will be vitreous body. In between these two, the lens is situated. Okay. Now the crystalline lens, mostly it is made up of protein. 60% of the mass of the crystalline lens is made up of protein. It is the tissue which is having most amount of protein. Okay, in our body. कोई भी टिश्यू ले लो, सबसे ज़्यादा प्रोटीन रहता है क्रिस्टलाइन लेंस में, about 60%. Okay. Now, if you see the crystalline lens, it is having three parts. First of all, the lens capsule. The outermost part is the lens capsule, as you can see in the diagram. Okay. So here you can see the lens capsule. So lens capsule is present on the anterior aspect also. It is present on the posterior aspect also. Okay. Next, deep to the lens capsule, we are having the lens epithelium. Which type of cells are this? Simple cuboidal epithelium. Simple cuboidal epithelium. This is the lens capsule. Now, deep to the lens capsule, you can see most of the thickness of the lens is made up of lens fibers. Okay. So these are the three layers. So crystalline lens का कितना layer रहता है? 3 layers. From outward to inward. Which is the outermost layer? Lens capsule. The outermost layer is the lens capsule. Just deep to the lens capsule, what is present? Lens epithelium. Which type of epithelium? Simple cuboidal epithelium. Okay. Please note that the lens epithelium is present on anterior surface only. Posteriorly, the lens epithelium is absent. Okay. तो ये देखो, this is the anterior aspect. So only on the anterior aspect you will be getting the lens epithelium. On the posterior aspect, lens epithelium is absent. ठीक है? And most of the bulk, how it is formed? It is formed by lens fibers. Okay, it is formed by the lens fiber. Now you have to understand one thing. From lens epithelium only, the lens fibers are formed. Okay, जितना भी lens fibers हैं, how they are formed? From the lens epithelium only. Okay. Now, lens epithelium from the anterior aspect, when they will go laterally, okay, there is a transition zone near the equator. So, जो lens होता है, these are the equators of the lens. Okay, this is the anterior pole, posterior pole. These are the equators of the lens. Okay, near the equator, a transition zone is there. In that transition zone, what happens? The cells, cuboidal cells, will become elongated. जो elongation होता है anteriorly होता है, okay, and gradually they becomes fibers. Once the fibers are formed, okay, first of all the primary fibers are formed, okay, newly formed fibers. Now those newly formed fibers, they are having the nucleus, okay. Gradually they will go towards the center of the lens. जो fibers होता है form होगा, they will become elongated. Gradually they will go to the center. Once they reach the center, that is called as the nucleus of the lens. उसमें क्या होता है, जो lens का जो fiber है, fiber का जो nucleus है, it is lost. At that time, nucleus is not present. Okay, and the lens, that particular part, is become harder. Here you can see the diagram. So here you can see the lens epithelium. As I said, it is present on the anterior aspect only. This is the germinative zone or transitional zone. Okay, this is the transitional zone. Now here you can see the fibers, lens fibers. So these are the lens epithelium. Gradually you can see the length of the epithelium increases. Okay, and they become fibers. Now here you can see the nucleus is present. But if you go towards the center, in this case you will not see the nucleus of the lens fibers. Okay, so this particular part is called as the nucleus. These are the primary fibers, and these are newly formed fibers, also called as the secondary fibers. Okay, so these are the points which you have to study in the lens. Okay, and along with that you have to know that this capsule, ये जो capsule होता है, anterior capsule and posterior capsule, how they are formed. This capsule are nothing but the basement membrane of the lining epithelium. You know that कोई भी epithelium हो उसका basement membrane रहता है, right? तो ये जो lens epithelium इसका basement membrane कहाँ पे रहेगा? So this capsule is nothing but the basement membrane of the lens. Okay. Now basement membrane is also transparent in nature. If it is not transparent, light will not be able to enter through it. Okay. So first is the lens capsule. So lens capsule is transparent, homogeneous, highly elastic. Okay, and it is made up of collagen fibers. Collagenous means it is made up of collagen fiber. Which type of collagen fibers are there? As you can see, it is made up of type 4 collagen fibers. Along with that, glycoproteins and laminins are also present in the lens capsule. Okay, this is the structure of lens capsule. Now if you see the thickness of the lens capsule is not uniform. Okay, so the capsule is thicker in front than behind. That means on the anterior aspect, the lens capsule is thick. On the posterior aspect, the lens capsule is thinner. And most thickest part of the lens capsule, can you guess which part is the most thickest? Thickest at the equator. Okay. Next, the thickness of the lens, it increases with age, whereas the thickness of the posterior capsule, means anterior capsule will increase with the age and posterior capsule remains constant or slight changes will be there. Okay, that is the lens capsule. Next is the lens epithelium. So which type of epithelium are the lens epithelium? Simple cuboidal epithelium. Okay, and they are present on the anterior surface only. Posterior surface में lens epithelium नहीं रहता है. Instead of that, what is present? Lens fibers are present. Okay. So ultimately, they are converted into fibers from the substance of the lens, which is forming the substance of the lens epithelium. If you see the cells, lens epithelium, they are metabolically active. Okay, because they contain sodium, potassium, and ATPase. Okay, and generate ATP to meet the energy demand of the lens. That's why the cells are highly active. The lens epithelium cell communicate to divide and develop into lens fibers, as I have mentioned earlier. Okay. Now posterior epithelium is not there. Instead of that, we are getting the lens fibers. Next are the lens fibers. Lens fibers, how they develop? They develop from the lens epithelium. In the diagram I have shown you, from lens epithelium, from anterior aspect, when they are going towards the equator. Okay, at that time a transitional zone is there. In that transitional zone, what happens? The length of the lens cells increases, the epithelial. Okay, now in which direction the length increases? On the anterior direction. Okay, and after that only the lens fibers are formed. Once the lens fibers are formed, okay, a protein is present in that, and these are called as crystalline. So the lens fibers, they are made up of soluble protein. These are called as crystalline. Okay. Now the laminated structure of the lens are due to continuous addition of the fibers. If you see the structure of the lens fibers, how they are arranged in a laminated structure. Laminated structure का मतलब क्या है? In the form of layers, because every time newly formed cells are added, and from those cells new fibers are formed. Okay, so as a result, the laminated structure can be seen in the lens fibers. Okay, next, if you see, the central part is harder, and that is called as nucleus, and the peripheral part of the lens is softer, and it is called as cortex. Why? Because at the central part of the lens, जो fibers होता है, उसमें nucleus, cell bodies, all those things are not there. That's why it is harder. but the cells which are at the periphery, okay, which are present at the cortex, they are having all the cellular organelles. That's why they are softer in nature. Next, ये जो crystalline protein है. Now the question is, if the nucleus is disappeared, if the nucleus regresses from the lens fiber, then how come the crystalline protein is formed? That is because of the mRNA. Okay, as you can see, that is because of the mRNA of the lens fiber, the proteins are continuously synthesized. Okay. Next, if you take the cross section of each lens fiber, what will be the shape? It is a hexagonal prism shaped. Okay, it is hexagonal prism shaped. Next, there are some important sutural lines in the lens. Okay, you have to know about the sutural lines. So what are these sutural lines? Now if you see the lens from anterior aspect, or if you see the lens from the posterior aspect, at that time you can see that three faint lines can be seen, and those three faint lines join to form Y-shaped structure. Okay, now this Y-shaped structure is seen in case of fetal lens. Okay, now this Y-shaped structure is inverted when you see the lens from the posterior aspect. Okay, in case of adult person, this particular sutural lines, they are having multiple branches. Okay, they are having multiple branches, 6 to 9, 9 to 15, and the appearance is dendritic pattern. Okay, so these are called as sutural lines, and they are made up of amorphous material. Now the ends of the lens fibers, okay, so the lens fibers are attached to these sutural lines. Now here is the diagram. So you have to understand one thing. Now here you can see the diagram. So this Y-shaped sutural line, okay, this is the sutural line. Now this Y-shaped sutural line can be seen in case of fetus. So in a fetus, if you see the lens from the anterior aspect, okay, at that time you can see three faint lines, okay, and in the form of Y-shaped structure. These are made up of amorphous material. These are called as sutural lines. Okay. If you see from posterior aspect, then ये जो sutural Y है ये उल्टा हो जाएगा, inverted Y हो जाएगा. Okay, when you see from the posterior aspect. Next, in case of adult, means in case of adult person, if you see those sutural lines, they are not having particular Y-shaped structure. Okay, many branches are there. As you can see in the diagram, you can see many branches are there, and they appear as dendritic pattern. And those sutural lines can be seen because the lens fibers, the terminal part is attached to these sutural lines. Okay. Now, these sutural lines, how you can see in a patient? Any idea? You can't take out the lens of a person to see the sutural line. तो कैसे दिखाई देगा? There is a machine, okay, called slit lamp. There is a machine called slit lamp. I don't know whether you have seen or not. जो जिसका आँखों में ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम है उसको पता होगा. ठीक है. Whenever you go for doing eye checkup, ठीक है. I hope you have seen how the power of the eye is measured. Another type of machine is there where they will ask you to sit and put your chin like this. ठीक है. And on the opposite side, another person, optometrist, will sit and then they will do the visualization. They used to check. उसको बोलता है slit lamp. Okay. Through that, these sutural lines can be seen. ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ sutural line देख सकता है. With the help of the machine, other things can also be seen, but sutural lines can also be seen. Okay. Now this is the diagram which you have to draw in your practical notebook. ठीक है. तो इसमें क्या दिखाई दे रहा है? What you can see? Can you see the lens capsule? Here. Can you see the lens capsule? कहाँ पे दिखाई दे रहा है lens capsule? Yes. So this is the lens capsule. तो जो layers है lens में, कितना layers रहता है? 3 layers are there. Outermost कौन सा है? Lens capsule is the outermost. Innermost कौन सा है? Lens fibers. ठीक है. तो ये देखो. So that means this is the outer side. This is the inner side. ये outer हो तो ये inner ही होगा, right? तो in the outer aspect, what you can see, this is the lens capsule. See, homogeneous appearance. Okay, transparent homogeneous appearance, lens capsule. ठीक है. Just deep to the lens capsule, what you can see? Lens epithelium. Which type of epithelium? Simple cuboidal epithelium. ठीक है. Deep to the epithelium, you can see these are the lens fibers. ठीक है. Now lens fibers also two types are there. Neuriform lens fibers where you can see the nucleus are present. ठीक है. And old new fibers which are present at the center, उसमें nucleus नहीं रहता है, as you can see over here. Mature lens fibers where nucleus are absent. Okay. Only these three features you can see. You have to see for histology of lens. Okay, crystalline lens. Okay. Next structure is eyelid. Okay. So two eyelids are there, upper eyelid and lower eyelid. Okay. So what is the structure of upper eyelid and now what is the structure of lower eyelid? Same only, but only one difference is there that I will discuss. What is the difference? Okay. So it is a fold of skin. The eyelids are the fold of skin, protects the eyeball and helps the cornea to remain moist. Okay, that is very important. In the corneal chapter we have discussed that cornea don't have any blood supply. Okay, but how it will remain moist? जो secretions होता है from the glands which are present in the eyelid. Okay, oily secretion that keeps the cornea moist, prevents the evaporation of the thin film fluid from the cornea. Okay. Next, from outside to inside, the eyelids are having 5 layers. Okay, and you can see it easily. क्या करना है? Layers सब दिखाई नहीं देगा. In order to understand this, stand in front of a mirror. ठीक है? एक आँख बंद करो. Okay, and what you have to do like this? You have to retract the eyelid. Okay, with one hand just retract the eyelid. जो अंदर वाला part दिखाई देगा, that is the innermost layer of the eyelid. And then close one eye. जो बाहर ये दिखाई दे रहा है, this is the outermost layer of the eyelid. Very simple. तो outermost layer में क्या दिखाई दे रहा है? Skin. Very simple. When you close your eye, ये eyelid में ये क्या दिखाई दे रहा है? Skin दिखाई दे रहा है. Okay. तो first layer will be the skin, as you can see in the diagram. ये देखो, first layer is the skin. Next, you can see the superficial fascia. Skin के नीचे superficial fascia रहता है. Already you know that. Okay. Where it is made up of subcutaneous loose connective tissue. Deep to that, a muscle is present that is called orbicularis oculi. Okay. So this is the outermost layer. This is the innermost layer. Okay. Outermost layer में first you can see the skin is there. Deep to the skin, superficial fascia is there. Deep to the superficial fascia, you can see these are the cut section of muscle. Which muscle? Orbicularis oculi muscle. इस muscle का function क्या है? Closing the eye. Whenever we are closing our eyes, this orbicularis oculi is helping to close the eye. Okay, तो always keep that in mind. जब हम लोग आँख बंद करते हैं, कौन सा मसल काम करता है? Orbicularis oculi muscle. ठीक है. Next, deep to that, you can see the tarsal plate. You can see this is the tarsal plate. Okay, tarsal plate क्या होता है? It is a band of fibrous tissue. Tarsal plate. Okay, दोनों eyelid में रहता है. Now this tarsal plate में grouped होता है. In those vertical group, glands are present. Okay, ये देखो. In the tarsal plate, you can see the tarsal glands are present. Okay. Tarsal gland का जो secretion होता है, these are oily in nature. As a result, what will happen? जो corneal fluid होता है, it takes time to evaporate. Okay. तो जो lacrimal gland होता है, वहाँ से fluid आता है, most of the fluid. Okay. Now, it used to spread over the cornea. Whenever we blink like this, the fluid will be spread over the cornea. That's why you can see after a certain period of time, you used to blink. So why we blink at that time? The secretion from the lacrimal gland is spread over the cornea. Along with that, the oily secretion is also added, and oily secretion is taking place from here. Now this oily secretion will reduce the will increase the time of evaporation. मतलब जो thin film fluid है over the retina, over the cornea, it will take time to evaporate. Thus it maintains the moistness of the cornea. Okay, so that is the important function. And lastly, the deepest layer is the palpebral conjunctiva. ये देखो, this is the palpebral conjunctiva. Okay, तो कंजंक्टिवा का 3 पार्ट होता है, palpebral conjunctiva, bulbar conjunctiva and conjunctival fornicis. Conjunctiva will discuss later on. ओके 3 पार्ट होता है. ओके तो इफ यू एलिवेट लाइक दिस, जो अंदर वाला लेयर दिखाई देगा, दैट इज नथिंग बट द palpebral conjunctiva. ओके नाउ if it is upper eyelid, then a additional layer of muscle is present, that is called as levator palpebrae superioris muscle, which is shown in green color. Can you see the muscle? I am talking about this one. Okay, levator palpebrae superioris muscle. Now this is specially present in case of upper eyelid. इसका function क्या है? Any idea? It will open the eye. Orbicularis oculi का काम क्या होता है? Close the eye. Levator palpebrae superioris का function क्या है? It will open the eye. Okay, so that's why it is present in the upper eyelid. So anteriorly, or you can say externally, first which layer is there? True skin is there. Okay, the skin is very thin and few hair follicles are there. Along with that, sweat glands are also present. Okay, deep to that, a delicate layer of connective tissue is present, and in that connective tissue layer adipose tissues are absent. Generally जो superficial layer होता है below the skin, adipose tissue are present, and in this case adipose tissues are absent. Okay, next considerable thickness of the eyelid is formed by palpebral part of the orbicularis oculi muscle, which I have shown you just now. Okay, which is a skeletal muscle, smooth muscle नहीं है, these are skeletal muscles. Next, the skeleton of the eyelid is formed by a mass of fibrous tissue that is called as tarsal plate. Okay, that is called as tarsal plate. Now, tarsal giving attachment to the muscle. Along with that, it also houses some important sebaceous glands, and those are called as tarsal glands. So, on the deep surface of the tarsal plate, there are series of vertical grooves, and in those grooves, tarsal glands are present, also called as meibomian gland. Okay, also called as meibomian gland. Anyone have you heard about stye? STYE, stye. नहीं देखा? I think last month I have seen one student suffering from stye, or also called hordeolum. तो उसमें क्या होता है, जो मेबोमियन ग्लैंड से, ठीक है, मेबोमियन ग्लैंड से जो सिक्रेशन निकल के आता है, उसमें अगर ब्लॉकेज हो जाता है, एट दैट टाइम द एरिया यूज टू गेट स्वेलिंग हो जाएगा. ओके, एंड इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस इट ऑकर्स ड्यू टू बैक्टीरियल इन्फेक्शन, सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज हॉर्डियोलम. ओके, आई होप यू हैव सीन, वेरी कॉमन कंडीशन. नेक्स्ट देयर आर अदर टाइप्स ऑफ ग्लैंड्स. ओके, ओनली मेबोमियन ग्लैंड्स नहीं रहता है इन eyelids. Some other types of glands are also present. Okay, so tarsal gland, as I said, these are modified sebaceous gland. ठीक है, इसका जो secretion होता है, oily secretion, that will spread over the lacrimal fluid. Okay, and delays the evaporation of the fluid, which is very helpful to keep the cornea moist. Next, there are some modified sweat glands present. These are called as ciliary glands, or also called as glands of Moll. Okay, these are present near the eyelid, at the free edges of the eyelid. These glands are present. Next, there are some sweat glands which are related to the eyelashes, and these are called as glands of Zeiss. Okay. Next, if accessory lacrimal glands are present in the eyelid, then it is called as glands of Wolfram. Okay. And if it is upper eyelid, then which muscle will be there? Levator palpebrae superioris muscle is there, which opens the eyelid. Okay. Next, if you come to the innermost part, the innermost layer is made up of what? Palpebral conjunctiva. Okay. Now this palpebral conjunctiva is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Along with that, goblet cells are also present. Okay. Now this is the histology diagram of eyelid. Can anyone tell me which is the innermost layer, which is the outermost layer? ठीक से देखो, ठीक से देखो. Which is the no, which is the innermost layer and which is the outermost layer? यहाँ पे बोलो. That is the, yes, and this is the innermost layer. Why? I know still students are having confusion. Which side is innermost and which side is outermost over here? Yes, this side is outermost and this is the innermost layer. Why? This is the outermost layer, this is the innermost layer. Now why this is the outermost layer and why this is the innermost layer? Because here you can see the skin. Okay? So here directly skin is not written, instead of that you can see dermis and epidermis is written. That means skin is present. Along with that you can also see the hair follicles. So hair follicles hai matlab true skin is present. So that is the outermost layer. Deep to that you can see the adipose tissue. Very less amount of adipose tissues are present. That means this is the which layer? Superficial fascia. This is the superficial fascia. Deep to that you can see this is the muscular layer. Which muscle is present? Orbicularis oculi muscle. Yeah. This is muscles are present, orbicularis oculi muscle. Deep to this you can see here the tarsal plate is present, which is a band of fibrous tissue, and in that what will be present? Meibomian glands or tarsal glands. So here you can see Meibomian glands or tarsal glands are present. Okay. Next, deep to that you can see the palpebral conjunctiva is present. This is the palpebral conjunctiva. Okay. Now palpebral conjunctiva is made up of stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Along with that some goblet cells are also present. Okay. So these are the layers of eyelid. So this diagram you have to draw. In case of eyelid, two diagrams you have to draw. This one and the previous one, the first one which I have shown. Dono diagram draw karna hai. This you will draw with H&E pencil, previous one with normal pencil. Okay. That is all about the eyelid. Next topic is spinal cord. In physiology, have you studied about spinal cord? Anyone? Huh? So spinal cord is a part of central nervous system. Can anyone tell me the length of spinal cord? Any idea? What will be the length of spinal cord? Approximately. Spinal cord का length कितना होगा? Approximately 40 to 45 centimeter. The length of spinal cord approximately 40 to 45 centimeter. Okay, it is a part of central nervous system. Okay, so you know that the spinal cord is the downward continuation of medulla. जो spinal cord होता है, that is the downward continuation of medulla oblongata. So from where to where it continues? Upper border of the first cervical vertebra to lower border of first lumbar vertebra. That is the extent of spinal cord in case of adult. In case of small children or infant, it reaches up to second or third lumbar vertebra. Okay. Next, though it is a part of central nervous system, then it will be covered by what? Central nervous system is covered by what? Central nervous system is covered by what? Meninges. Central nervous system are covered by three layers of meninges, right? Dura mater, arachnoid mater and pia mater, right? So though it is part of central nervous system, that means it is also covered by all these three layers, right? Next, जहाँ पे spinal cord terminate होता है, जहाँ पे spinal cord terminate होता है, that particular part is cone shaped. That's why it is called as conus medullaris. जहाँ पे terminate होता है, it is cone shaped. That is called as conus medullaris. From that particular part, a thread-like structure is extending downwards. Okay, and that is nothing but the process of pia mater, and it is called as phylum terminale. Okay, these are some external features of the spinal cord which we will study. Now, in histology, our aim is to study the cross section of the spinal cord, TS of the spinal cord. Okay, we have to study about the TS of the spinal cord. Now, if you take the TS, so, and what is the shape of the spinal cord? Anyone? Shape क्या होगा spinal cord का? Cylindrical shape. The shape of the spinal cord is cylindrical in nature. ठीक है? तो in order to study the microscopic structure, what we have to do? We have to take the TS. ठीक है? ऐसे करके TS लेना है. Once we take the TS, then what you will be expecting to see in that TS? क्या दिखाई दे सकता है? Two things are there. The central part is made up of gray matter, which is H-shaped or butterfly shaped, and the peripheral part is made up of white matter. Okay, here is the diagram. Now in this diagram, this is the TS of the spinal cord. Okay, now if you take the TS of the spinal cord, what you can see, this is the central part. The central part is made up of H-shaped gray matter. Okay, and the peripheral part is made up of white matter. Now the question is, gray matter में क्या रहता है, white matter में क्या रहता है? क्या रहता है? कुछ तो रहेगा, हाँ? No. Next, तो gray matter, white matter. Next, if you see the center of the spinal cord, center of the, तो you have taken the cross section, and then if you see the center, उसमें क्या दिखाई देगा? Can you see a small circle in the center? ये देखो, ये देखो. Can you see a small circle at the center? This is called as central canal. This is called as central canal. Throughout the length of the spinal cord, the central canal is present. ठीक है? उससे क्या होता है? CSF is passing through the central canal. Okay? CSF production कहाँ पे होता है? At the ventricles. From ventricles, it has to go into the spinal cord. How it will go? Through the central canal. Okay? Now, when you are taking the TS of spinal cord at the level of cervical vertebra, at the level of thoracic, and at the level of lumbar and sacral, it is not same. The shape of the TS will be different. Okay, that I am not going to discuss right now. That will be discussed in the neuro class. But please keep that in mind. More or less, it will be same. Means at the center you will be getting the H-shaped gray matter, and periphery you will be getting the white matter. The question is, ग्रे मैटर में क्या रहता है, वाइट मैटर में क्या रहता है? वेरी सिंपल. जो ग्रे मैटर है, इन द ग्रे मैटर विल बी गेटिंग द सेल बॉडीज ऑफ डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ न्यूरॉन्स. सेल बॉडीज ऑफ द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ न्यूरॉन्स. which type of neuron, that will be discussed later, but please keep that in mind. H-shaped gray matter में क्या रहता है? Cell bodies of the different types of neurons. Okay, and in the white matter, what is present? Nerve fibers, myelinated nerve fibers. Along with that, okay, along with that, blood vessels are also present, and some neuroglial cells are present. Okay, these are the constituents which are present in the central gray matter and the peripheral white matter. ठीक है. Next, ये जो central gray matter है, as you can see, H-shaped. So two halves are there. That is the right half and left half. ठीक है. Another important point which you have to note down, that is, in the spinal cord, first you have to identify which is the anterior aspect and which is the posterior aspect. If the spinal cord is in the body, easily you can say कि हाँ ये anterior है, ये posterior है. I have taken out the spinal cord from the cadaver. I have given it in your hand. Now you identify कौन सा anterior है, कौन सा posterior है. How will identify which side is anterior, which side is posterior? For that you have to see two things. On anterior aspect, you will be getting a deep fissure, that is called as anterior median fissure or anterior median fissure. Okay, so anterior median fissure मतलब this is present on the anterior aspect, and on the posterior aspect you will be getting the posterior median sulcus. I hope you know the difference between fissure and sulcus. जो sulcus होता है उसका depth कम होगा, जो fissure है उसका depth ज़्यादा होगा. Easily it is noticeable. So like this we can identify which is anterior side and which is posterior side. Okay, so here which is the anterior side, here which is the anterior. So this is the anterior side, that is the posterior side. Okay. Next, जो central gray matter है, H-shaped, ठीक है, it is also having different parts. Mainly it is having two parts. What are these two parts? So though it is anterior side, so this particular part is called as anterior horn, or also called as ventral horn. Next, this is present posteriorly, that's why it is called as posterior horn or dorsal horn. Next, in between the anterior and the posterior horn, in some segments of the spinal cord, you will see another horn, another projection, that is called as lateral horn. Okay, ये देखो, तो ये posterior है, ये anterior, दोनों के बीच में you can see lateral horn is present. But this lateral horn is not present everywhere. in some part of the spinal cord only these lateral horns are present, especially in case of thoracic segment of the spinal cord. The lateral horns are present. Okay. Next, as I said, ये जो H-shaped gray matter है उसका दो half होता है, that is the right half and left half. Now this particular both the halves are united by this gray commissure which is present throughout the around the central canal. Okay, ये central canal है, around the central canal gray commissure is present. Now this gray commissure will interconnect both the halves of the gray matter. Okay, that is the gray commissure. ठीक है. Next particular part is the white matter. So here you can see this entire part is the white matter. तो white matter में क्या रहता है? What is present in the white matter? Nerve fibers are present in the white matter. Okay. Now in physiology, I know you have studied about the tracts of the spinal cord. How many types of tracts are there? Huh? How many types of tracts are there? Tracts you have studied in physiology. Ascending tracts and descending. Actually तीन type का रहता है. I don't know whether you have studied or not. Ascending, descending and intersegmental tracts. Three type का tracts रहता है. If anyone asks you, don't say two. Three types of tracts are there. Ascending tracts, descending tracts and intersegmental tracts. ठीक है. Three types of tracts are there. तो tracts कैसे form होता है? How the tracts are formed? By the fibers only. The bundles of fibers, they will only form the tracts. ठीक है. Now in white matter, in this particular area you can see the white matter is divided into three areas. Okay, and those are also called as coulombs or funiculus. Okay, so this particular part is called anterior funiculus or anterior coulomb. Then this particular part is called lateral funiculus or lateral coulomb. This is posterior funiculus or posterior white coulomb. Okay. Now if you see the anterior white coulomb, it is present in between the anterior median fissure and ventral horn. इसके बीच में ये जो particular area है of the white matter, this is called as anterior funiculus. Next you can see between the anterior horn and posterior horn, this particular area is called as lateral funiculus or lateral white coulomb. ठीक है. And between the posterior horn and the posterior median sulcus, this particular area is called as posterior funiculus or posterior white coulomb. Now the question is, अगर white matter ही है तो अलग अलग नाम क्यों दिया गया है? Why the different names are given? Again, if you have not studied the tracts, you can't give the answer. तो when you have studied the tracts, you have seen जो particular tract है उसका location particular होता है, right? How you have studied the tracts? How you have studied the tracts? देखो, first of all you have to know, if you are studying about the ascending tracts, you have to know what is the origin, कहाँ से fibers origin हो रहा है tracts का, ठीक है? Then first order neuron, second order neuron, third order neuron, like this you have studied tracts. पता नहीं क्या, what you have studied. This is the way how to study the tract. Next, whenever the fibers are passing through the spinal cord, okay, through which part of the spinal cord they are passing. ऐसा नहीं है कि पूरा spinal cord will be occupied by one fibers. ऐसा नहीं होता है. These are very specific. ठीक है? So there are some tracts, there are some fibers in the tracts which will pass through this particular area only. Then there are some fibers will pass through this area and through this area. Okay, so it is very specific. That's why the white matter is divided into three different areas. Okay, this particular central canal is the central canal. Central canal से क्या pass होता है? CSF. CSF is passing through the central canal. ठीक है? Now this central canal is lined by a special type of cells, and these are called as ependymal cells. These are called as ependymal cell. Which type of epithelium is this? These are ciliated simple columnar epithelium. Ciliated simple columnar epithelium. Okay, these are the ependymal cells. Okay. Next, yeah. So what you can see in this diagram? क्या दिखाई दे रहा है इस डायग्राम में? क्या दिखाई दे रहा है? Can you see only one half of the cross section of the spinal cord? Now during the time of exam, if you are not having enough time, but you have to draw the diagram, at that time you can draw one half of the spinal cord only. It is correct, क्योंकि opposite height में half में same रहता है, तो you can draw one half only. Like this you can save your time. ठीक है? Now why I am showing this diagram? Because here you can see this is the central gray matter, okay, H-shaped, and this is the white matter. Now in the central gray matter, what is present? Cell bodies of the different types of neurons. ठीक है? Now this is the ventral horn, this is the lateral horn, and this is the dorsal horn or the posterior horn. So here you can see different types of nuclei are present. Okay, cell bodies of the different types of neurons are present. Okay, which can be seen under H&E section. I will show you, don't worry. ये दिखाई देता है, ठीक है? Next, in the white matter, as you can see, posterior white column, lateral white column, anterior white column, already we have discussed. Okay. Now the question is, yeah, histologically, whenever you will see the slide, ठीक है, under microscope, so whatever we have discussed, that is okay, but we have to identify the slide. We have to identify the areas. Now my question is, whenever you will see the slide, उसमें तो labelings नहीं रहेगा. Then how will identify which is H-shaped area and which is white fibers, which is the white matter? How will identify? Then how will identify which is anterior side, which is posterior side? हाँ, very good. तो जो fissure है, ये वाला anteromedian fissure, this fissure is so prominent that it is seen in case of microscopic structure also. तो whenever you are taking section and if you prepare slide, उस section में भी ये fissure दिखाई देता है. Okay, जो sulcus है, sometime it is seen, sometime it is not seen. ठीक है, section में नहीं आता है, but fissure दिखाई देगा. तो उससे easily you can identify कौन anterior है, कौन सा side anterior है, कौन सा side posterior है. First, second point is when you will focus on both the areas. Suppose you are focusing over here and you are focusing over here. What is the staining difference? कौन सा ज़्यादा स्टेन है, कौन सा कम स्टेन है? जो एच शेपेड एरिया है, सेंट्रल ग्रे मैटर, दैट इज डार्कली स्टेन. Why it is darkly stained? हाँ, because cell bodies are present. तो cell bodies present, it will be darkly stained only. Next, the peripheral area जहाँ पे white matter है, what is the staining? Brightly stained. Brightly stained, or you can say pale stain. ठीक है? Next, another important thing, I don't know whether you have noticed or not. Can you see so many small spaces? Can you see small spaces? ये देखो. Can you see the small spaces? So what are those small spaces? Huh? No. Any idea? See, whenever the slide is prepared, at that time what happens? I hope you have heard about the myelin sheath. Neurons में, axon में रहता है myelin sheath. So whenever we are preparing the slide, the myelin sheath is washed away. ठीक है? तो myelin sheath it is washed away. That's why a gap is produced. That's why it is appearing white in color. Okay? That can be seen under H&E staining. This is also important feature of the white matter. ठीक है? Next, so previous one was the schematic diagram. Now this is the original histological image of spinal cord. This is under low magnification. This is under high magnification. क्या दिखाई दे रहा है low magnification में? तो ये क्या है? What is this? हाँ, central. ये क्या है? This is the central gray matter. ठीक है? Now central gray matter में this is the anterior aspect. So this is the fissure. Okay. This is the sulcus. This is the anterior gray horn. This is the posterior gray horn. Okay. Here you can see this is the white matter. This is the white matter. ठीक है? And ये जो center है इसमें central canal दिखाई दे रहा है. And central canal is lined by ependymal cells. Now if you zoom it over here, यहाँ पे अगर zoom किया anterior gray horn, then what you can see the multipolar large neurons which are present in the anterior horn. जो anterior horn है उसमें जो nucleus रहता है, those are multipolar neurons and the size of the neurons are larger and that can be easily differentiated in the anterior horn. Okay, वो जो posterior horn में नहीं रहता है. Okay, so like this also we can easily differentiate. Okay, so that is all about the microscopic structure of spinal cord. ठीक है, so let's see the slides. Okay, after that you can go.